Hello, my name is Ariana Schmink-Klinghaus and I'm here to talk about academic conversations, which is Module 3 assessment. Students no longer need to just memorize facts because we have the internet at our fingertips so they can access any information they need at the drop of the hat. If they want to answer 2 plus 2, they can look it up. If they want to know the square root of 159, they can look that up. They can look up the news, they can look up science, they can look up anything that they need for facts. Today we must focus on how we can apply and use these facts and information that we've gathered to comprehend and to access, to converse with other people. How I view this is we need to teach students not to be robots. How can we beat the robots? So instead of Siri or Google, it's just saying, oh, what's this? Instead of knowing the facts, how can we use those facts to use critical thinking skills? Because a company is not going to replace you with a robot if you can have good communication skills and can think critically about an issue and solve it better than a robot. So we must teach students how to comprehend and do these things instead of just teaching them the rote stuff. And a lot of this directs from what happens in the classroom. So after 3rd grade, it's mainly teacher-centered and a lot of lectures. It is very teacher-driven. Oral language is vital for teachers to use to teach students how to build literacy and reading skills, as well as communication skills. According to the chapter about academic conversations, many students already have academic conversations at home, but other students do not have this luxury, and teachers have to be mindful that not everyone gets the same things at home. Because America is a melting pot, we have so many different cultures and languages and all these things that we have to think about, ethnicities, and we need to be mindful that students come from diverse backgrounds, linguistically, culturally, and the chapter tends to refer to them as students with diverse backgrounds or diverse students. And they speak in various environments. So at home they might use a different language or just another form of English than they would at school, because it would be academic English at school, whereas at home they would more use their native or first language or a different version of English, like yo yo what's up, or something like that, instead of like text language, text lingo. You won't write text lingo in an academic paper. You won't be saying you would be saying Y-O-U. And then many students, as well as students from low socioeconomic backgrounds, are not given the opportunities, including English language learners or other students from other backgrounds. They're not given these opportunities to have and practice those academic conversations like others do at their home. So they need that in school. And without practicing academic conversations, how are the students able to understand and engage in the content? How are they supposed to practice life skills to thrive in society and get good jobs? And how will they become critical thinkers? Well, with academic conversations, kids can engage in the content. They will have a deeper understanding of the content and they can discuss it with others within the class. Kind of like a think, pair, share, but asking those deep questions. In standards, the new standards, the phrasing of the skills are evaluate, distinguish, outline, summarize, analyze, and hypothesize. Students should be collaborating in teams or with partners, expressing their ideas and listening to each other as they communicate, listening, receptive skills. Students should be critically thinking together as a class using key conversation skills that were expressed above, and you can use those in your lesson plans. How are they supposed to practice life skills to thrive in society and to get good jobs? Well, many employers want and desire workers and colleagues to have excellent oral communication skills. If we aren't teaching them that, where are they going to get them? Typically, some employers will send people to go get those skills or to learn those things. But it's nice to already have them so you can get that good job. So if you look at the core skills employers desire for future employees, you'll see they want problem solvers, communicators, critical thinkers, analyzers, and many more things like empathy and understanding. They want all these things So they're looking for people with the skills outlined in the standards that I just talked about, that they need to be thinking and critically analyzing situations already as kids, so when they're up in the adult life, they already mastered those skills. So why aren't we teaching academic conversations to help build all these skills? Because we want them to become critical thinkers. Facts become raw materials for building ideas. We need them to solve problems, to think critically and become communicators, to transfer those concepts to novel, real situations. Conversations help develop these high skills. So how might we integrate academic conversations into our classrooms? I work in a nonverbal autism room, and whenever I work on communication skills in my room, I allow my students to select reinforcers independently using either the communication devices like the Toby or an iPad app to tell me what they want, or they can even say it verbally if they can. They're allowed to man for things using their communications device, like I want goldfish, I want iPad, I want a break. They can man for these things. They can tact, label, respond to questions or any demands that I'm giving them with their device. I've been working on communication and social skills with my students. I will have them say hello or goodbye to others as we're leaving the room, or if we meet people in the hallway, like the principal, we might go hello, and we'll just we've been trying to work on that communications. I'll have them turn to the person, and I'll have them make eye contact with that person, and I'll have them say hello. And I like to do a lot of shaping, so I will reinforce the closest approximation to what they're doing. So even if they turn and make eye contact and they say ha, that's an approximation of hello, the first ha. So as long as they're trying to make the effort, you're still reinforcing that good effort because they are working on those social skills. I do this a lot throughout the day. We do more building of these skills. Like I might welcome the students as soon as they come in to the school. I'll greet them and we'll look at them and say hello, and they have the option to do a high five, a fist bump, or a hug, and they can tell me. I have the visuals and they can tell me. And then they have to make eye contact, and we do that. So that's another social skill in communicating with me. We practice building relationships too through that. I do a lot of talking aloud and modeling. This helps students develop an inner monologue so they can hear what I'm saying in their head, which goes along with what Vygotsky was saying, how it's important to shape students' minds so they know how to think and understand things, and they can hear you in their brain. And by having students listen to what I'm saying, they start to hear my voice. And the other day I was doing this with one of my students. I was saying math sentences like 5 plus 5 equals 10. And we had dice, and I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equals. And then we would put them together, and then we would count all the way to 10. And then he started doing it on his own. He was going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but he was making approximations. He was like He couldn't say the numbers, but you could tell he was saying what I was doing in his head. So it was really cool because the student was verbalizing or trying to verbalize what I was doing in his head. It was cool to see it happen. And then the student began to write the numbers and made the math sentences and added them up all correctly. And it was really cool to see how Vygotsky's inner voice was being shown in my own practice. But in a resource room or as a co-teacher, I would probably do some things a little bit differently because my students are nonverbal. These other students might be different. I would shape conversation prompts and have mini lessons to teach them communication skills throughout the year. I could model and guide students to use new vocabulary and have them discuss content in a deep way. I could check students' understanding and have them paraphrase the text. I could use graphic organizers to have them practice critical thinking skills and sequencing and just jotting down ideas so they know what they could say when asked. I could have students start teaching each other different content, because you need to know the content in order to teach it. So that would help them understand the content and then help others understand the content. And it would help them understand it in a new way that maybe they haven't thought of before, like creating a quiz or a questionnaire. I could connect content areas to real world problems by inviting guest speakers in to the classroom and see why we're learning what we're learning in class and how it applies to the real world. And this shows how they could actually use this stuff. Like, when am I gonna use, the Pythagorean theorem? And then I would show them like, oh, this job actually uses that. I could have classroom meetings or morning meetings or before the end of the day meetings, and I could share experiences or good, bad things that happened throughout the day or something they learned, and others can identify with them. And then they can build on each other's experiences and maybe connect with one another. And this builds relationships and a community within the classroom. This also allows students to see other perspectives, and they can compare and contrast with their own, or even if I read a story during a shared reading, they could identify with the characters. At our school, we go like this when we identify with someone else. And then they can come up with their own perspectives and be like, oh, I don't think I believe what that person said, and I think I had a different idea. So they take ownership of how they analyzed the story or activity, and they get their own ideas and perspectives, and then they compare them to others, and they discover bias within themselves and maybe others, and then they access new knowledge through these deep discussions. I would have students connect to their own personal experience and bring those in as well, because everyone has different backgrounds, different experiences. We all can come together and see different things. And through these discussions, I can even, as a teacher and other teachers, you can evaluate how the students are learning. You can be like, oh, well, they're doing more of their own personal experiences than connecting it to the content. Maybe they didn't understand the content, or, oh, they seem to be missing this sequence. Maybe we should go back. So it's evaluating and knowing how students are doing through progress monitoring through these discussions. Then you can see if they already know the content. So if they're breezing through it, pick something new because they already got it. I could see how they could connect the content to their lives, like a math fraction could be used in baking, or the theme of the story could apply to their own life. I'd provide anchor charts in the classroom so that they could help formulate questions that they could ask each other, or help them know what to respond, or at least a sentence starter, like I agree and disagree because. I would like to I wonder why, or I have a question about, this reminds me of, I predict that, I don't understand, could you explain why you think about this? And just like some conversation starters to get the juices flowing. How can teachers hold students accountable for engaging in deep, meaningful, professional conversations? Students might already find conversations enjoyable. They might already have that social motivation, and they might want to learn what others are thinking and feeling and how it applies to their life. Students should be excited about conversations, and because they're often unpredictable. So you could look forward to, what they're going to say now? What are they going to say? And then one comment in a discussion might spark another student's interest. You can see it, and then they carry their own conversation, and the teacher doesn't have to do anything. More student-centered. And then they can see and contrast their interests or connections to their personal experiences. They might have students find their own voice and help them create their opinions, which is great because in our school, we do the 7 or 8 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And we use it in my school, and 8th habit is finding their voice and helping others inspire to find their own. So if this isn't working, self-motivation sometimes isn't there for some kids, which is fine. So we need to instill it in these children and make them accountable to have these deep conversations. We need to show them how to self-monitor, how to peer monitor, have them evaluate themselves, each other, and see how they contribute to the discussion. I had a teacher do this once in my university, and we had to read a case study, and then we came to class, and you had to come to class with an article that added or found a solution to the case study. And at the end of the discussion, we had to evaluate ourselves of how much we participated or felt we participated within the discussion. So if I connected to the discussion, but I didn't bring an article, but I like raised my hand in class and said something that pertained to the case study, I got a 1 out of 5, or I'd rate myself 1 out of 5. If I added thoughts and analyzed it to a source and applied it to the article and brought it into class and shared all these great, wonderful things, then I would probably get a 5 out of 5. And she had all those things written out in a very explicit way, what you would get in each section. So if you set up the expectations for students to follow, then they would have to evaluate themselves and others, and they'd be more accountable to participate within the deep discussions. After discussions or think pair shares, I would get students to ask, so let me see if I got what you're saying. You're saying this, or can I check your understanding of that content by asking, is that clear? You know, like, is this what you're referring to? I could have students restate what someone else was saying, or their perspective by saying, can you repeat what your group or your partner was talking about in your own words? I would ask students to apply their own reasoning to one of their peers or a person in a story to agree or disagree with so-and-so and why. I would prompt more students to chime in to deep discussions by asking, would you like to add on to so-and-so said? I would ask students to explain their opinions by asking, why do you think that? Or how did you get to that answer? Or can you like walk me through what you were saying? Like, do a think aloud with me? Like, tell me what you're thinking when you were doing this. And then that gives them the opportunity to even teach you, the teacher, what they were thinking. What additional insight do you gain from your own research on academic conversations? I researched in an academic journal titled Scaffold Academic Conversations, Access to 21st Century Collaboration and Communication Skills. This is a journal article which discussed how national standards have increased their speaking and listening requirements, and these skills are dependent upon academic conversations to oral skills. So many students with disabilities or English language learners, which I might say ELL, have poor oral skills. So it's really hard to get these new standard requirements. The journal article presents instructional ways to have the students reach these high standards by providing opportunities for students to engage in academic conversations, which scaffold support in students' abilities to speak a new language. So many of these skills are made to prepare the students for the complexities of the workforce today. Like I said, we're trying to beat the robots. However, students with disabilities and students who are struggling to learn English because it's their second language are faced with many challenges since they have less developed oral skills. We must scaffold instructional needs in academic conversations to bridge students to master the speaking within the content areas. Academic conversations are sustained, intentional, back and forth exchanges about academic topics. Students must have opportunities for multiple exposure to academic vocabulary and discourse. They must have repetition